They told you time is a river, flowing, serene, eternal. But what if I told you it's a cage? Not a soft rhythm of seconds and minutes, but a rigid lattice of invisible bars. You feel it every day, the pressure of the clock, the deadlines, the birthdays that come too fast, and the memories that drift too far. Time, they say, is natural. But what if it was made? Not discovered, but invented. Not by physicists or monks, but by powers who needed to control something far more dangerous than the ticking of a watch: your freedom. Look back, before the calendar, before the clock tower. What did time mean to a hunter in the forest or a child in the sand? The sun rose and it set. The seasons shifted, but no one counted minutes. There was no 9 to 5, no late, no early. Life was a pulse, a breath. It was not measured, it was lived. Then something changed. Historians often praise the invention of timekeeping as progress. They call it civilization, but that's not the whole truth. The oldest mechanical clock wasn't built for the people. It was installed in monasteries, not to free minds, but to regiment the prayers of monks, carving their devotion into segments. Later, it was adopted by kings and merchants, not because it helped them understand the universe, but because it helped them govern it, control it, slice it, sell it. Suddenly, time became money. You were no longer alive, you were scheduled. When factories rose from the smog of the Industrial Revolution, time became the new god. Children worked 12 hours beneath flickering gaslight, not because it made sense, but because the clock said so. Men weren't paid for effort, they were paid for hours. Minutes became currency, and timekeeping became surveillance. Miss a shift by 5 minutes and you were punished. Too slow on the line and you were replaced. But worst of all, your own sense of rhythm, of being, of when to rest or act, was shattered. You no longer lived by instinct, you lived by bells. And the bells still ring. Even now, your phone buzzes at 6:30. You rush through your shower, chug your coffee, and curse at the traffic light. You are not late because you are disorganized. You are late because someone else decided what on time means. You obey clocks more than you obey your body. You eat lunch when the clock strikes noon, not when you are hungry. You sleep at midnight, not when your eyes close. And the strangest part? You call this normal. But here's the secret no one tells you. Time is not the same everywhere. Einstein proved it. Clocks tick slower in orbit than they do on Earth. Time stretches near black holes and collapses at the speed of light. But beyond physics, even cultures experience time differently. In the West, time is a line: past, present, future. In some indigenous cultures, time is a circle, an endless return. In others, time doesn't move. You do. You walk into the future backwards, eyes fixed on the past. And yet modern life insists there's only one way, one clock, one truth, one prison. This prison is elegant. You can't see its bars, but you feel them. In your aging face, in your panicked mornings, in your regret. What is regret if not a punishment by time? What is fear of death if not time's greatest weapon? You are not afraid of dying. You are afraid of not having enough time. You are afraid of being too late, too old, too forgotten. But what if time didn't exist the way we think it does? What if every moment, every laugh, every wound, every goodbye was still happening somewhere? What if the past is not gone, but simply out of reach? Imagine a world where time is not a path, but a room. You are not walking through it, you are trapped inside it. Every event is a wall, every choice a lock, and every second that ticks by is just another turn of the key, locking you further in. They taught you to respect time, but what if you should resist it? You wake up in the morning thinking you're free, but your very first act, checking the clock, reminds you that you are not. You are being watched, not by a person, not even by a machine, but by something far more insidious. A structure of time that wraps around your choices, defines your value, and decides when your life is meaningful. Have you ever wondered why every second is the same length, yet some feel like torture, and others vanish like mist? That's because the clock measures time but not experience, and yet we let it govern both. This prison was not built overnight. It was engineered, bit by bit, over centuries. The first chains were iron bells in churches, then came sundials carved by empires. But the real conquest began with the railroad. In the 19th century, trains needed synchronized schedules across cities. So the world was divided: time zones, standard minutes, official hours. It was no longer enough to be on time in your town. You had to be on time in someone else's system. The moment time was standardized, it ceased to be yours. Think about this. What else in your life is measured so obsessively? We don't weigh love in grams. We don't calculate friendship in inches. But your life is constantly reduced to numbers. Years lived, hours worked, minutes wasted. You are encouraged to manage your time as if it's a substance you can spill or hoard. But the truth is far darker. You are being managed by time, not because time is cruel, but because someone made it that way. The corporate world thrives on this illusion. Time is money, they say. But whose money? Not yours. Every company meeting, every work hour, every unpaid second you spend anxious about tomorrow, it feeds a machine you will never control. Retirement becomes the great reward, as if finally escaping the prison just before death is a privilege. You are promised rest only when you're too tired to enjoy it. School is no different. Children are taught to raise their hands to speak, to walk to the sound of a bell, to sit for 45-minute blocks. Not because this fosters learning, but because it fosters obedience to time. From an early age, your body is trained to ignore itself. You are tired at 10 a.m.? Too bad. The bell hasn't rung. You're creative at midnight? Doesn't matter. The schedule says sleep. What kind of world builds its citizens to mistrust their own internal rhythm? And when you break free, on weekends, on vacations, what do? You still look at the clock. You still say, "It's too late," or "I wasted the day." Because the prison doesn't need walls anymore. It lives inside you. You have become your own warden. You police your rest. You punish yourself for stillness. You feel guilt for not being productive, even though your body begs for silence. This is not just conditioning, it is indoctrination. But here's the twist. The prison of time is not just built by governments or corporations. It's built by fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of meaninglessness. Time gives us the illusion of order. It turns chaos into a schedule. It turns mortality into milestones. But this illusion has a price. You sacrifice presence for planning. You sacrifice wonder for efficiency. You sacrifice being alive for being on time. Have you ever stared at a clock in the dark? The second hand moves, and yet nothing happens. It ticks forward, indifferent to your joy, your pain, your existence. That's when the truth creeps in. Not all time is equal. Some seconds are heavy, others hollow. Some moments stretch into lifetimes. Others vanish before you breathe. And yet the clock never changes pace. Because it's not measuring life, it's measuring control. What if you stopped measuring? What if you stopped asking, "What time is it?" and started asking, "What do I feel?" What if you lived by the sun again, or by the sound of your own heartbeat? This isn't nostalgia, it's rebellion. To live outside the prison of time is not to abandon reality, it is to reclaim it. To remember that time was once a tool, not a master. But make no mistake, those who built the prison want you to forget that. You think you are chasing time, but the truth is, time is chasing you. It stalks you in every mirror, every candle on a birthday cake, every sigh at the end of a long day. It reminds you constantly of what you've lost and what you haven't done yet. It tells you that you are always running out. But what if that's the lie? What if time only has power because you believe in it? The ancient Greeks had two words for time: chronos, the ticking, numbered, mechanical time, and kairos, the time of opportunity, of meaning, of presence. We have forgotten kairos. We have sacrificed it on the altar of schedules and alerts. You check the clock more than you check your own heart. You remember deadlines more than dreams. This is not just culture, this is control. But not everyone surrendered. In remote corners of the world, there are tribes who still live without clocks. The Para people of the Amazon have no words for yesterday or tomorrow. Everything is now. They don't plan for the future, not because they are primitive, but because they are free. Their world is not fragmented into hours. It breathes, it flows. They are not late for anything because nothing rules them. Compare that to your life. You plan vacations months in advance. You celebrate a future birthday before you've even lived the days between. You wake up on Monday already waiting for Friday. And then, when Friday comes, it disappears before you can feel it. It's not because time is fast. It's because you're not in it. You're outside of your own life watching it pass through windows you didn't build. Have you ever noticed how time behaves strangely in moments of real emotion? A car crash lasts a second, but feels eternal. A childhood summer feels infinite, but was only 3 months. That's not illusion, that's reality. Your soul doesn't measure time in minutes, it measures by impact. But modern life doesn't care about impact. It wants output, it wants results. It wants you to keep moving even when your spirit is begging you to stop. This is how the prison feeds itself. You are told to be productive, not present, to grow up fast, to move on quickly, to forget the past and fear the future. But in that race, you miss everything. You don't notice the way sunlight softens your walls at 4 p.m. You don't hear the quiet grief in your mother's voice. You don't taste the coffee. You are there, but not there. You are alive, but only technically. And what of death? Is it the end of time, or the end of your illusion of it? Many who've had near-death experiences report the same thing. Time collapsed. Their lives didn't flash before their eyes in sequence. It came all at once, as if everything that ever mattered existed simultaneously. Not in line, but in light. Scientists call it a trick of the brain, but maybe it's a glimpse of the truth. Maybe time, as we know it, dies before we do. If that's true, then everything changes. Regret no longer makes sense. Anxiety becomes a joke. And the future, so often used to scare or motivate you, loses its grip. Because if all time is happening at once, then the prison doesn't need to hold you. You can walk through it, you can step outside the hallway of seconds and see the whole house. But how? Not with technology, not with philosophy, with stillness, with silence, with presence so deep that the clock loses track of you. When you stare into a candle flame for long enough, you begin to feel it. The slowing, the melting, the release. You are not late. You are not early. You are not behind or ahead. You simply are. And that, perhaps, is the greatest rebellion of all. You were born into time, but you were not made for it. Before you had a name, a schedule, or a sense of tomorrow, you simply existed. You breathed, you cried, you felt warmth and hunger and love without ever knowing the hour. That pure state, before the clock entered your veins, is still inside you, waiting. The bars of the prison are not made of metal, but of belief, and belief can be broken. Now listen closely. Time is not a straight road, it is a hall of mirrors. Each moment reflects another. A decision made at age 8 echoes into your 40s. A conversation in the dark becomes the ghost of a future you never lived. You think you're moving forward, but perhaps you're walking in circles. Circles made not of days and years, but of loops in your soul. Why do old songs still hurt? Why do forgotten places feel familiar? Because part of you is still there, and maybe it always will be. This is what they didn't want you to understand. Because if you realize that your pain, your joy, your entire sense of before and after was a structure and not a truth, you'd stop obeying. You'd stop sacrificing the present for a future that never arrives. You'd stop selling your time to people who treat it like property. You would become untouchable, and that makes you dangerous. Throughout history, those who glimpsed the truth were silenced or sanctified. Mystics, poets, shamans. They all spoke of time in riddles, not because they were confused, but because language itself is linear. Words follow one another, but what they saw came all at once. The mystic doesn't say, time is a line. She says, all things happen now. The poet doesn't write, it took 10 years to love her. He writes, in her eyes, I remembered the beginning of the world. We've been taught to dismiss these people, to call them dreamers or worse, mad. But maybe they weren't mad. Maybe they just stepped through a crack in the wall. And once you see the other side, the ticking of clocks begins to sound like laughter. Not because life is a joke, but because time is. And what happens when the prison collapses? You begin to live like water, not rushing toward the sea, but becoming the sea. You stop asking, what time is it? And start asking, what matters now? You hold a friend's hand longer. You taste your food slower. You no longer count the minutes of joy, fearing they will end. Because joy isn't made of minutes, it's made of meaning. You begin to see that time is not a prison guard, it's a reflection. And once you stop fearing the reflection, you can move through it. You can remember that time is not a predator, it's a canvas. And you are not a prisoner, you are the painter. So breathe. Not because your schedule allows it, but because you are here. You have always been here. And in this moment, this impossible, eternal moment, you are free. Because time is not real. And now, you know it.